Fred Barnes is my guest. You know Fred, longtime Beltway boy with Morton Kondracki, probably holds the most appearances on the Hugh Hewitt show. He's been in hiding for a while. I don't know why. I don't know. Fred, where did you go? Have you been watching the Alamo on endless loop?
I love the Alamo, but I don't live in it. And yeah, but anyway, it's great to talk to you. I'm still alive. You know, the Weekly Standard folded, and I'm now writing a column a week for the Washington Examiner, and working on some book proposals. So I'm expected to be here a bit longer, meaning here on the earth.
We got to keep you back in our regular rotation because no one else is as bad at sports as I am other than you. You've got more losers than I do. You're a Redskins fan, a Washington Wizards fan. You root for the Virginia Cavaliers. You had your one moment in the sun like I did with the Cavs in 2016. Other than that, you're just as desperate a fan as I am.
One moment in the sun is all you need. I want more, but we've had one. And Virginia, it was, I'll have to say, in recent years, other than my family and my wife and my faith, Virginia winning the national championship was the biggest thing.
That, for me, the 2016 Cavs are it. But, of course, we go to the Super Bowl with the Browns next year, and I think we got World Series talent on the Indians. But, Fred, that's not why I've asked you here, nor the Alamo. I've asked you here to tell me what you think about this sham impeachment. We have a real serious crisis going on in the world. Tom Cotton figured it out. He went to the Senate Armed Services Committee and said, pounded on the table, Singapore has closed its borders to China. The world's kind of waking up. But we've got this sham impeachment. When does it end?
It may end today. I hope so. There's no reason to keep it going. I thought Lamar Alexander, the senator from Tennessee, had it just right. He'd been considering, I think sincerely, whether to bring any witnesses in, any more witnesses after the 17 that were interviewed in the House, and came to this conclusion: the president acted inappropriately, but this was not an impeachable offense, was not near it, and I think that's why the defense of the president by his lawyers was so good. They did both the facts and also stressed the law, and came to the right conclusion. Lamar Alexander did, and their argument did, that this was not an impeachable offense. And of course, I'm talking about the abuse of power, the one about even meeting the Congress. That was preposterous in the first place.
Well, it was preposterous. I haven't written anything. I normally write for the Post once a week or so. I haven't written anything since the 21st. And the reason is I said everything that needed to be said, which was that the impeachment process hurts the presidency and the Constitution, and it should be stopped. I believe that has carried the day, except with Senators Collins and Romney. And I'm still urging people to give to Susan Collins because she's got quite the spine. She is taking so much heat and hate from the left, Fred Barnes. I've never seen anything like it.
I'd give her a pass, Hugh. I like Susan Collins. After her great speech in the Kavanaugh nomination for the Supreme Court, I went and talked to her. All my years in Washington, all her years in Washington, I had never met her. And I went and talked to her one-on-one for about an hour. She was fantastic. And, she was so brave in that. I'm willing to give her a pass.
Me too. I'm out raising money for her today. People go to senatorcollins.com because the left, the Wall Street Journal has an editorial today. I did not know it had started again. I knew during the Kavanaugh hearing she had been the subject of abuse, but the death threats have begun again. The abuse have begun again. It's just crazy in that town.
Yeah, look, Republicans need her. The country needs her. Mitch McConnell needs her, and if she wants to vote for more witnesses, that's fine.
Did you happen to see Chief Justice Roberts do his Beth impersonation of Darth Vader in response to the Elizabeth Warren question? We couldn't see her, but if we could, it would have been like Star Wars 1 where the captain was being choked to death invisibly.
Well, Warren lived up to what I would expect. As much of a sham as the whole impeachment process was, she even cheapened that.
Yes.
With her question. And look, I was not worried about Roberts at all in that question. And there'd been at least one question, maybe more, about whether about trying to get Chief Justice Roberts to subpoena witnesses like John Bolton himself. And I think that would have been unconstitutional if you look at Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution. I mean, it's not for he doesn't have that role. It would have been wrong.
No, he
And
presides. He does not rule. This is supposed to keep the judiciary out of it. It's a pretty much basic con law question. Fred, this has taught me one thing, but I already knew it. Never play cards with Mitch McConnell.
yeah. No, he's very lucky. But Mitch McConnell, his greatest strength is his ability to bring his conference together and keep it there. He did it even when they were in the minority, and he's been doing it now. He spends more time with Susan Collins than any other senator, and she gets some rewards for that to help her get reelected and help the state of Maine. But he does bring them together, and I'm a great believer that politics is a team sport, and nobody plays it better than I've seen in my lifetime in Washington anyway than Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, great. Now let's talk about politics and disease. Number one, the disease is real. The virus is real. I just read an email from a friend, a senior senator involved in these matters, saying that WHO and the CDC are invested in not making elected officials look bad. They underplay panic for a reason. But the truth is the truth. The truth is China is in a mess. This is a bad deal, and
Yep.
they are in a bad place. Do you think our country is responding correctly at this point?
Well, I hope so. I'll have to say I really don't know. I mean, I'm more alarmed than I hear from CDC and politicians. I think this thing is really scary. It can kill so many people, and obviously, a communist country like China doesn't handle things like this well at all. They, because they're if you're a communist, your chief goal is not worrying about whether your country has a horrible disease spreading like this and your people are safe and so on. You have other things that you're worried about. And China's been worried about being this big, powerful country and so on. And I think their healthcare system has just been horrible, and it continues to be. The Chinese are to blame for something terrible that's going on, and it's all over Asia now, of course, and we have to worry here badly. I hope we're up to it. I think we probably are, but that hasn't been proven yet.
No, and when we see Singapore, which is a very together place. I've read recently Robert Kaplan's Asia's Cauldron, A Little History of Singapore contained therein. When they shut their borders to all Chinese, that is a flare. They know China better than anybody. The late Lee Kuan Yew was the master of the PRC. Yep. He understood it, and he's passed that down. When they shut their borders, I think everybody in the world ought to shut their borders. And that's what I just think. I'd follow the Singapore here.
Oh yeah, no, I would follow Singapore too, and we ought to shut our borders and have no flights coming. I would say for a while here, let's have no flights coming in from Asia.
That's the Tom Cotton position from China. Yeah. You're a little bit more expansive.
China, from Asia. Obviously, we don't want any planes coming in from Wuhan province, but
yes,
I don't think we want them coming in from anywhere in Asia because it's spread everywhere in Asia. They're all and that of course has been documented. And this is, I can't remember anything quite like this in recent times.
Ebola in 2014 got people's attention, but it never got to this numbers. It's bigger than SARS now. Quickly, Fred, I need to get your opinion on what happens in Iowa on Tuesday. What do you think's coming?
I don't know. It's so hard to predict Iowa. I see that Bernie Sanders is ahead. I think these Democrats are all terrible candidates, and it may be a twofer for Donald Trump. He will. I suspect. I hope they vote today to acquit him, and then have Bernie Sanders win the Iowa primary on Monday. That's a two for me. Look,
I already voted for Bernie because I get my absentee ballot in Virginia. I'm not going to be there on March 3rd, so I got to vote in the open primary, and I voted for Bernie. I want a clear choice, Fred. I want the clearest choice possible on the ballot.
Yeah, you won't want it in which the Democrat will lose. Well, Bernie Sanders is that person.
Well, no, actually, I think Elizabeth Warren's easier to beat. If I was doing strategic voting, I think she's easier to beat.
Well, I think she's fairly easy to beat, but look, Trump still hasn't dealt with some of his problems that had Republicans fleeing. I live in Virginia, and I've seen Republicans flee from the party, and they did in 2018, and they did in 2019 in the state election, and a lot of it is because they just don't like Trump, and he's got to deal with that.
You're absolutely right, per usual. Fred Barnes, great to talk to you. Follow him on Twitter at Fred Barnes, his column in the Washington Examiner.